Welcome to the GCN Racing News Show. Coming up this week, we wrap up the UCI Road Race World Championships and answer the question, just who is Mads Pedersen? We also look back at some quite incredible performances from Annemiek van Vleuten and Chloe Dygert Owen. And we'll also be discussing the GCN predictions, which didn't go all that well, surprisingly. We're going to start though with the Elite Men's World Championships in Yorkshire from yesterday. The weather forecast for most of the week had been bad, and the forecast was bang on. On the morning of the race, they had to cut 20 kilometres from it, and with it, a couple of the biggest climbs that were supposed to lead into the finishing circuit in Harrogate. Those omissions, though, didn't make the race any easier. So bad was the weather, and so deceivingly tough was the circuit, that it was one of the hardest world championships that we've had in years. In fact, in the end, there were only 46 finishers in this men's race, and it's been 23 years since we've had fewer, Lugano back in 1996. An early break, which included 3 Grand Tour winners, Roglic, Quintana and Carapaz, was caught on those finishing circuits, and it took a while for the next move to go. Lawson Craddock went with a little under 50 kilometres remaining, soon joined by Stefan Kung of Switzerland. A little later, Mads Pedersen jumped across, and then Gianni Moscon. Soon after, though, the big move came. Pre-race favourite Mathieu van der Poel attacking on a climb, Trentin glued to his wheel, and Alaphilippe unable to follow. That gave us 5 out front, and as it would turn out, it was the race-winning move. Now, most so-called experts, including myself, then decided it was a 2-horse race between Trentin and Van der Poel. Until 11k's to go, that is, when the latter was distanced. Now, I, and many others I expect, were sat there wondering what was wrong with his bike. And the answer, as we soon found out, was nothing. His bike was fine, but he wasn't. He'd just gone through what every single cyclist has been through at some point. The lights had gone out completely. Now, as bonking goes, it was pretty spectacular. He went from being race favourite to being caught by the main group to getting dropped and eventually rolled in close to 11 minutes down and one of the last finishes on the day. All in the space of that 11 kilometres. So what we can conclude from that is that Van der Poel is human after all, just about. It meant that the race was then Trentin's to lose, but lose it he did to the strongest man in the race, Mads Pedersen. It was basically a battle between who had the most energy left rather than who was fastest at the finish on paper. Pedersen then became Denmark's first ever Elite Men's World Champion winner and youngest winner of the event since Oscar Freire back in 1999. So just who is Mads Pedersen exactly? Well, it seems a lot of us want to know. Over 33,000 people clicked on his Pro Cycling Stats page yesterday, a record for their website. Well, he was born in Leida in Denmark and he still resides in his home country now. Mads won Paris-Roubaix as a junior in 2013, a year in which he also picked up the silver medal at the World Championships. He turned pro in 2017 with Trek, winning his national championships, the Tour of Denmark and the Tour Poitou-Charentes. Big results, but he first came onto many people's radar at the Tour of Flanders last year, where he finished runner-up to Nicky Terpstra. This year, his only win came in his last race before the World Championships, the Grand Prix d'Isberg. And you wonder actually whether that race is going to become the preparation race of choice. As the Inner Ring pointed out on Twitter, in 2016 and 2017, the winners there, Christopher Halverson and Benoit Cosnefroy, both went on to win the World Championships, albeit in the under-23 category. Apart from that, he's a really easygoing guy that just enjoys riding his bike. He also owns a very fast motorbike and he's getting married later this year. So what next for Mads Pedersen? Well, you would imagine that with the rainbow jersey on his back, he'll be able to command much more of a leadership role with Trek Segafredo at the Classics. And given his previous performances, you'd not put it past him winning the Tour of Flanders or Paris-Roubaix, or at the very least, a cobbled semi-classic. What he'll be hoping for, though, is rain. He clearly excels when the races are long, hard, and grim. Also, interestingly, Mads Pedersen is a bit younger than Mathieu van der Poel, and so is yet another example of a whole new generation taking over at the helm, from the likes of last year's winner, Alejandro Valverde. The Spaniard pulled out of yesterday's race with around 100k's to go and said that the race was for madmen. More prophetic words you are unlikely to hear. Now, what I particularly loved was this video taken by Sven Jonker after the race. This is Ken Sommer's reaction to Pedersen's win. He, along with my former teammate Joao Correa, are Pedersen's agents, and have looked after a lot of young riders over the last few years. Now, I just love the combination of joy and disbelief when you watch Ken Sommer there. Trentin's reaction at missing out was an admirable one. He just said that he'd done everything he could. He was disappointed, but he'd lost to a stronger rider. Stefan Kung, meanwhile, could be happy with the bronze medal, Switzerland's first medal, in fact, at the Elite Men's Road Champs for a long time. So, what about our predictions?
Philippe Gilbert for the old guys.
Mathieu van der Poel,
Alejandro Valverde, Van der Poel,
Matteo Van der Poel,
Peter Sagan,
Matteo Trentin,
Alejandro Valverde,
Alaphilippe.
And not only did we not predict Pedersen, we also mentioned about 115 riders in our 37-minute preview show of the race, and we didn't mention him, not even once. That said, those of you who follow me on social media will know I had a cheeky little bet on Pedersen at 160 to 1, so I was a very happy man. Although probably not quite as happy as Annemiek van Vleuten had been the previous day at the elite women's road race, held, quite incredibly, under blue skies, at least for some of it. The pace was high from the start, particularly on the climbs, and on the toughest climb of them all, Lofthouse, Annemiek van Vleuten went on the attack. Nobody would or could go with her, and there was still about 105 kilometres to go to the finish. It was an audacious move, even potentially a stupid move, as she herself admitted afterwards, but she quickly eked out a 2-minute advantage despite the best efforts of the likes of Lizzie Dygert of Great Britain behind. And that, as they say, was that. Chloe Dygert Owen tried to get across with 30k's to go, closing the gap a little bit before it ballooned again. And in the end, her closest challenger was teammate and last year's world champion Anna van der Breggen. It was a ridiculously impressive ride, really. I mean, you hardly ever see a 105km solo attack succeed in any pro race, let alone at the World Championships. But having thought about it, maybe it wasn't quite as silly an attack as it initially looked. I mean, of course it was in hindsight because she won the race, but just bear with me here for a few moments. The Dutch were the team to beat. We knew that, they knew that, and Van Vleuten most certainly knew that. So rather than stupidity, her move was genius, in my view. 2 or 3 of her key rivals for the title were in her very own team, and so in going ahead earlier, it meant that behind she had the likes of Vos and Van der Breggen chasing down any of the attacks from her rivals in other teams. I mean, 105k's is still a little bit excessive, but it clearly worked. That said, for it to work, you had to have one of the strongest races that we have ever seen. Van Vleuten is an inspiration to all of us, continuing to improve year after year through sheer hard work, training and determination. That was one of the most impressive performances I've ever witnessed at any race, and it's made our choice for GCN Rider of the Week a very easy one. Well done, Annemiek. Well done too to Amanda Spratt, who took a very fine 3rd place on the day. Now, before we move on, I wanted to let you know what we've got coming up for you this week on GCN Racing. At the weekend, we have the next 2 Italian one-day races, the Giro dell'Emilia and the Grand Prix Beghelli, live to those of you in North, Central or South America, with commentary from yours truly. We also have the next 2 international cyclocross races from Moerlebeeke and Pelt on Saturday and Sunday respectively. Saturday, Marty will be joined by Helen Wyman, former British national champion in that discipline, and Sunday he'll be joined by our very own Jeremy Powers, multi-time US champion. Both of those races are available in most countries. Right then, on to the time trials, and in the men's, we had an expected surprise, if such a thing is possible. Rowan Dennis hadn't raced since pulling out of the Tour de France in July, and so his form was unknown to us, if not to him. Now, he obviously wasn't lying when he said he'd been training very hard for this event back at home, and it was a lesson to all of us in remaining focused on your goals. His win didn't come on a Merida bike though. He'd already stated beforehand that he'd be using a bike supplied by the Australian Cycling Federation. Although actually it was kind of a team bike from the previous year, an unmarked BMC time machine. Although he then went on to ride the road race with a fully stickered up BMC. His team at the moment, barring Merida, released a statement last night saying that his contract had been terminated a few days previously, something which he at the moment is apparently contesting. Anyway, his time trial performance was absolutely brilliant. Dennis would win the event by over a minute ahead of Remco Evenepoel, who took a silver medal in his first year as a senior rider, which is incredible in itself. Although perhaps not quite as incredible as the ride by Chloe Dygert Owen in the previous day. Now, she was a rider that we did talk about in our preview show, believe it or not. I think we were all very excited to see what this talent was capable of in one of her first events against the best riders in the world. And my word, she didn't disappoint, did she? I arrived home from Yorkshire myself basically to turn the TV on and see that she was 3 minutes clear of the next best rider at that point, former world time trial champion Lisa Brennauer. In the end, she'd win by a minute and a half from Anna van der Breggen, with last year's winner Annemiek van Vleuten in 3rd. It was the biggest winning margin in an elite individual time trial world championship since the event was introduced in 1994. And to put that into even more perspective, the event was only 30 kilometres long. In other races, Mikkel Bjerg took his 3rd straight title in the under-23 men's time trial. He'll be moving on to the pro ranks next year with UAE Team Emirates. American Quinn Simmons won the junior road race after a very strong solo move. He'll join Evenepoel as one of the few juniors to go straight into the pro ranks, as he's been signed by Trek Segafredo for the next 2 years. Now, the most controversial race by quite some margin of the whole week was the under-23 men's road race. It was a really exciting race with loads of attacking, and it all came down to the wire. Crossing the line first was Niels Eekhoff of the Netherlands, but sometime later he was disqualified. Now, it turned out that he'd been involved in a crash and he dislocated his shoulder, put it back in on his own, and then spent a few minutes drafting behind his team car to make his way back to the bunch with over 100 kilometres still to go. There's been quite a lot of contrast in the opinions about this, and it's something we're going to be talking about at length on tomorrow's GCN show. Now, the following day, Niels put out a very balanced statement, all things considered, and I personally feel very bad for the lad, but I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter, which you can leave in the comments section below, and I will be giving you our thoughts on that GCN show coming tomorrow. In the end, it was Samuele Battistella who would take the rainbow jersey. He also took to Twitter the following day to say that even though he crossed the line second, he was the strongest rider in the race. He'll be turning pro next year for Team NTT, which is currently known as Dimension Data. It was, in fact, the USA who topped the medal table, handily put into graphic format in this tweet from Jose Bean. And one of those golds came in the junior women's road race, which was won by Megan Jastrab, who took that ahead of Julie de Wilde after a late break with the time trial winner. Before we finish with the World Championships, next year's route has already been announced, and it looks like it's even harder than the Innsbruck course from last year. It's going to be in Martigny in Switzerland, and we'll have a total of 4,000 metres of elevation gain over 250 kilometres for the men's event. There's only one main climb on the finishing loop, that is the Petit Fourclaz, but it's 4 kilometres long at 10% average gradient. Here's the graphic of that parcours from La Flamme Rouge on Twitter, sure to be one for the pure climbers, I think, in 2020. There's also set to be another UCI World Championships taking place next year. Last week, the UCI and Zwift announced that the first ever eSports Cycling World Championships will take place in 2020. There aren't a whole host of details out yet in terms of location, course, or even qualification, but I'm sure we'll be hearing more very soon indeed. In other news, it emerged last week that the Israel Cycling Academy will be taking over the World Tour licence from Katusha in a kind of a merger. Unfortunately though, with that Israeli team already quite full, it means that they're unlikely to be able to home the 11 Katusha riders who have a contract running through next year. Before we get on to some other transfer news, there's been a retirement in the form of Brice Veilleux. The Frenchman only took one race in his career in terms of wins, but it was a big mountain stage at the Tour de France, so not too shabby really. Right, transfer news now, and Marta Bastianelli will return to the Ale Cipollini team next year. She's currently racing with Virtue Pro Cycling, which is a team that's folding at the end of this season. Joining her there at the Italian squad will be Mavi Garcia, who's currently with Movistar. Elena Baxter, who took 5th in the Junior Road Race Championships and 3rd in the time trial, has signed a 3-year deal with Trek Segafredo, which is a great signing for them. There's also a rumour that Peter Vakoch will move next year from De Koning Quick-Step to Corendon Circus, which is of course the home currently of Mathieu van der Poel. Right, that is all for this week's GCN Racing News Show. Next week we'll be back with those Italian one-day races and those next international cyclocross races from the weekend. To remind you, we have those in certain territories here on GCN Racing Live. In the meantime, if you haven't yet seen us set a world indoor hour record, you can find that video just down here. It's on a penny farthing, believe it or not.